So when Hunter was on, we dove a little bit off the diving board into magic talk. And you said you watched Hunter's shit, so you heard some of the things. Hunter's instructions for me to you was to present the same exact argument that I gave to him. He was like, exactly what you just said, just say all of that shit to Mark. So pretty much what I was saying is, it started off randomly. I was like, dude, like, have you heard of like David Blaine? Like, I just watched a YouTube video the other day and his mouth was sewn shut. And
dude, I was dying.
He like spit a frog out of it. And then Hunter was like, oh, huh, like funny. Like, I get it. It's a joke. And then I was dead serious. And I kept going and I was like, no. Like, there's this one video and he's in front of like the LA Lakers team and like LeBron James and shit. I don't know. And like these famous people, and he would have them pick a card, put it back in the deck, and then he would take their wristwatch off and it would be folded up underneath their wristwatch. And then pretty much Hunter was like, yeah, dude, that's manipulation. Like, there's somebody from the crowd's in on it type shit. And I was just like, dude, if that's the truth, I'm so thoroughly disappointed in society. Because like a famous basketball player that's like rich already, they're just one of the last people I would expect to like fake a magic trick with David Blaine. If you were like, oh no, that guy down on the fucking street did it, it's like, okay, that's one thing. But like when you start involving people like fucking like big, like, why would they feel the need to like lie? Like, I saw this shit and I was like, dude, this is fucking crazy. And then Hunter was just giving me hella shit, hella fucking shit. And I was like, Hunter, like, it boils down to, and then like one of my like counter examples, I was like, Hunter, like, everyone believes in dinosaurs. That's magic. Like, there's T-Rex teeth this big. That's fucked up.
I just found a new, the Megalodon? Have you heard of those? I just found the snake version. I think it's called the Titan boa. It was like 44 feet long.
Are you fucking?
And like 1,200 pounds.
Are you serious?
Like, would barely fit in this garage. But yeah, I get what you mean. And I think studying that stuff for so long, and I used to be like super into it. Like, that's all I would practice. Like, I was always practicing card tricks. I'd always practice stuff. I can't do really anything anymore because it's been 6 years, But I would say there's a few things I've picked up on. That there's some general rules to like reality, like there's certain things you can't do. Like, there's certain things that just aren't possible with like what we're given, if this makes sense. Like, I can't just like without anything, no strings, no nothing, I can't just be like levitate. Like, that's not possible. Like, I can't just have water start coming out of the cup. So when you see things like that, you have to ask the question, this is happening, so why is this possible? Because whatever's happening, whatever I'm seeing, that's the trick in my head. This is not actually true, except for David Blaine. Sometimes certain things about David Blaine, not that he does magic, but I was telling Hunter actually on the way here because I was talking to him.
Shut the front door.
So do you want me to kind of like, I don't know like how much you care about it, but like, do you want me to like tell you how stuff is done, or like tell you like, because I don't want it to be like then you're like, okay, well, this is all lame because now I know how all this stuff works.
Dude, I want to know everything, and you're a great person to do this because you've talked about magic forever.
Yeah.
And
I don't know, like, there's a lot of stuff I see that I'm like, I can't even begin to understand how that works, but the one thing I can say is, especially David Blaine, is he in some ways is kind of a psychopath. He has done things where he's like stayed in a pillar of ice for like, I think it was like 2 weeks or something like that, and he just is there. Like, he's been buried alive for days, if not weeks. Like, he's done things that is like, his amount of dedication to the craft that he's chosen is much more than most people's. And so when you see things like this guy sewed his mouth shut and then spit out a frog, when you look at that, your first like inclination is being like, how did he do that? This has to be a trick, right? But then you go back and you look at the other things he's done. He has stood on like a giant pillar for like 48 hours that he couldn't move on, and he just stood there. And he's flown in the air hanging onto a bunch of balloons. And he's had to learn breathing techniques so that way he wouldn't pass out and die. And he had to grab the parachute. He had a little like device, and he had to pull the parachute down because he didn't want to do it with the parachute because he felt like it was cheating. So he pulled it down on this thing, and he had to put this, he had to put it on while he's in like thousands of feet up in the air, where we should have passed out. Like we would pass out if we were that high up, but he has such a good control over his breathing that he fixed it. So when you think about those things that he's done, you go back and you're like, okay, well, he sewed his mouth shut and he spit out a frog. So you want to ask, where's the trick? There's no trick. He literally sewed his mouth shut. I watched that video after I watched your podcast, and I've seen it before, but he actually does that. He literally sews his mouth shut and then spits out a frog. Like, there's no trick there.
Did you tell that to Hunter?
Yeah.
Because Hunter was almost like mocking me. I was like, Hunter, like, what about like the aliens and shit? And Hunter's like, bro, this guy's on fucking crack. You know what I mean? But that shit's gotta be real. How do you do the wristwatch one? So where he pulls out the card that was just put in the deck.
So the wristwatch one is basically, there's different ways to do it, but normally what people do is you have someone pick a card, and when you're good enough with cards, you can put a card wherever you want it. So what he did was he took the card, he put it most likely on the top, and then there's a little trick you can do that allows you to very quickly fold a card. And there's a little split second where when he like readjusts someone's hand, if you rewatch certain clips, you'll see him grab their hand, and as he grabs their hand in that motion, he'll slide it under their watch. But they won't feel it. But it's so fast and it's so smooth that he folds the card. He literally just folds the card and puts it under their watch. And he does it like so smooth and disconnects himself from them. So it seems like he was never really in their space. And then he's like, okay, well, where'd your card go? Oh, it's check your watch.
So it's not magic. It's more of a trick.
It's magic in some ways that people have become so good at something that there's no they just don't mess up, you know. But the trick itself is finding ways to take your expectations of life and make you completely rethink them, you know. And it's like, how can I do this in a trick that, like, it's with anything. Like, if somebody didn't know how to use a camera and you're like, oh, like, this is how you use the settings, like, that's a whole new world to them, you know? They'd have to learn all the settings just to take a proper picture or set up for a video or set up lights like this, you know? So it's the same with magic. If you learn the little, like, fundamentals, then all the tricks start to make sense because you're like, well, he couldn't have possibly done this any other way. So this is the only way he could have done it, you know?
Okay, and then what about the ones where it's like he's doing like street magic and he'll like someone will like think of a color and there will be like a crowd and then he'll be like, okay, whisper it into one of their ears, and then like the lady like whispers it into like her friend's ear and she's thinking of like magenta or some shit, like a random ass color, and no one could ever guess it. And then he's like, okay, I'm gonna make it appear on the wall, and then the color appears on the fucking wall. That's magic, right?
So this one's gonna kind of mess with your brain a little bit. And I saw that, and I kind of like reviewed all of the
you watched this one?
Well, I watched all of them because I wanted to see, like, I wanted to make sure I could answer exactly the ones you wanted to know, because I've been out of it for so long. I can't just be like, oh, that's how he does it, you know, because I've kind of forgotten a lot. But that one is going to blow your mind because there's a part of us that, like, we're very perceptive creatures, you know, but we don't always realize what we're seeing. So like certain things influence us all day long, right? We see ads, like we see things that are like, oh man, those shoes, I really want those shoes, and you have no idea why. It's because you've seen a commercial, or you've seen an ad, or you've heard somebody talk about them, you know? So scary enough, it's the same exact principle. As he's talking to these people, he's influencing them to think of that color. So he's forcing them to think of that color because because if you think about it, like I said in the beginning, certain things are impossible, right? Like if I were to just be like, think of a color, and I've never been in here before ever, and I was like, you know, that color can't appear, like unless I was literally doing magic, it can't. So then you have to rewind and be like, how is this possible? Which means he had to have set it up before, which means then you have two explanations. He either knows the person and it's a setup, which is not David Blaine, because why would you do the stunts you've done and then hire people? Yeah. So then you say, okay, well, then it was already on the wall. But then you go back to, well, if it's already on the wall, how did he get her to think of it? And then you go back to the mentalist side, and you realize, like, people, you can plant things in people's brains for them to, they don't even realize it's there. And then they pick up on it later. And that's how he does it. So he'll have like the word that he wrote out, or like things next to it. So when you're reading it, you're like, oh, like it's a phrase like this is love, but like somewhere in there might say like blue or something really weird, and like you see it everywhere you're going. So they lead you perfectly to see their like setup. So that way they're like, oh, there's blue there, blue there, blue there, and then they'll have like a blue watch or like a something like that, and they don't realize it. But then when it comes time to think of the color, that's all they're going to think of.
Do you know the video I'm talking about?
Yeah, like, I think so, at least.
Wasn't he just like, yo, pick a fucking color?
Yeah, and the thing about videos like that is they're also, you can't see the before.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of them are like, oh, this is fake, or oh, this was set up. Why did this person already have a magazine or a this or that? And it's like, because he was talking to them before the camera started rolling. So it's not that it's a camera trick, but like, say have a trick outside and I'm talking to you right now, and I'm like, okay, like I have this trick already set up. I'm like, I'm telling you about this. I'm like, dude, this is really cool trick I know how to do. We need like a lighter, and we need whatever the hell that is. Let's go outside. I'll show it to you right now. But if we go out there and then someone starts recording and you have a lighter and whatever the hell that is, everyone's going to be like, oh, it was set up. Like, why would you randomly have a lighter and whatever that is? You know, so that's why sometimes it's not always camera tricks. It's you don't get the whole story.
So you're saying there was a conversation that had to have happened before that?
Yeah, for the most part.
Really?
Except, so there's this guy named Darren Brown. He's kind of like the pretty well-known mentalist, as you would call it. And there's one thing I saw where what he did was he orchestrated a very like organized way of controlling someone's thoughts. And what he did was he took a popular song, I don't remember what it was. He hired people to play it outside. He hired stores to play it in their store. He literally everywhere this one person went, that song was playing, but it was so in the background they didn't think about it. So then like an hour later or 10 minutes later, once he knows that that's the only song she's gonna think of, he'll go up to her and be like, hey, I'm Darren Brown, like, nice to meet you, can I show you a trick? You know, so now there's a setup there, and I think it was a lady, and she has no idea that, like, she has zero idea.
She's been getting like followed pretty much.
Yeah, she's everywhere she's going, she's being manipulated to think of a certain song. So when it comes time to ask her of a certain song from a certain era of a certain genre, she has to think of that song. And he does like the craziest stuff. Like he'll ask people like, think of an animal. But like in his shows, he'll plant stuff on the walls. So when you're walking in the doors, it'll like make, if he asks anyone, they would all think of like a rat or something like that. Like he cues everyone in their brain to sit there. And it's actually kind of creepy, because if anyone can do that, then what do you think people with power could do, or people that like want to? Like if you go on Instagram and you swipe through your feed, there's a certain algorithm that'll set every few posts, there'll be an ad. And you won't realize it. I think I've actually told you that before. And so every 2 posts, the third post will be an ad. And you'll just be swiping. You won't think about it. And it's all stuff related to you. And you're like, oh, God, I really want these. Like, I've really been wanting this. And you have no idea why. You just think you want it. But you don't at all. You just see it every day. Most of the times you see stuff that is very unexplainable. It's because they didn't have a choice. Or there's another technique called multiple outs, which is basically... if I say I'm like, okay, pick one of these cups, right? And pick one. Like, you want this one. So what multiple outs basically states is that by saying picking this one, if this is my target cup, this is the one I want you to pick, cool, I take it. If I wanted you to pick this one, but you picked this one, I'm like, okay, we'll put this one away and we'll use this one. So there's a lot of stuff like that where you think you have a decision, but no matter what you say, I'm going to control it to get the cup I want. Because you have no idea what the actual trick is. You just know I said pick a cup. You have no idea. Like if I said pick a cup to take away, and then you said this one, I took this one, you'd be like, okay, that was weird. But if I just say pick a cup and I don't tell you what I'm doing with it, you don't know that you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm always going to end up on whatever cup I want.
The one you want. Mm-hmm. Okay.
So there's stuff like that.
So you're almost kind of saying magic is not real.
It's not real, but I think in some ways there's a quote that's, I don't know the exact quote, but basically what it says is like, once technology becomes so advanced that I'm going to botch this real bad, but basically saying like, once technology is so advanced that you don't know what's going on anymore, that's magic. Once it's indistinguishable from like what you know as being real, that becomes magic, because if you think about it, in 100 years, what's to stop your phone from being able to click a button and this cup just starts floating?
True.
But if somebody showed that to you right now, you would think it's magic. So magic, if you think about it, is literally just it's just unexplainable events. Like if I clicked my fingers and everything turned off, you would think that's magic.
Yeah.
But what if it's a chip in my finger that when I strike it, it cuts the circuit or something, Yeah. So it's like magic is literally, I would say in some ways it's very real. But the definition of magic is where you kind of come into the question because of the like, I'm going to say a spell.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know how I feel about that. But I would say kind of quote unquote magic, I think is definitely real, because of speaking of aliens and stuff. What if I was an alien and you had no idea, right? Yeah. And I had this crazy technology, but how long have you known me? The last, I don't know, 5-6 years? You would never think of anything. But what if I was analyzing things and constantly gaining data, and one day you saw me get in my car and it flew away?
Yeah.
You'd be like, what the hell did he do? Or like I got in my car and it disappeared. You'd be like, that was magic. But for me, it's just my time, Like Hunter said, if we went back in time with our phones, people would be like, that's magic. Get that away from me. What is that? Why are you talking to your phone,
Yeah.
So I think that's a weird question, kind of, because like, yes, it is real, but depending on how you define it.
And it almost sounds like the deeper we progress in technology, the crazier the tricks are going to keep getting. Because eventually you're going to be able to walk through like a fucking portal and like end up on the other side of the room. Some sort of teleportation. And that's going to open up a whole new world.
And people are really creative. Like some of the tricks coming out, like I've seen tricks and I feel like I relatively know a lot because I've studied a lot of it. So I know how a lot of stuff is done. But there's some stuff that even with the questions I've given you saying like, if this is how this works, like this is the only possible outcome, there's stuff I've seen that I can't. My brain is not going to figure it out because they found a way around it. They found a way to do something that just doesn't make sense, even if it's the simplest of tricks.
Have you seen the one where there's like a deck of cards in the center of the table and they just start pressing it and it turns into one card?
Oh yeah. That one, I don't know exactly how that one is done, but there is a trick with cards where if you take them and say you take, like David Blaine does this trick, kind of one. What he does is he says basically pick a suit of the cards, and so they'll say diamonds. So he'll take the cards and he will basically remove every other card but all of the diamonds. So now all he has is the diamonds left, and say it's like 13 cards, I think it is. What you do is you pinch them so there's air in between each card, and from the right angle, looking at it from downwards, it looks like it's a full deck. But it's really 13 cards. So when you push it down, all the air goes away, because there's cards that aren't touching. So then it gives the illusion that it's shrinking, and now, oh my god, there's only the diamonds left.
He can take all the other cards out while like talking to you?
Yeah.
How? Sleight of hand, is that really a thing?
Yeah.
And he's just doing it so, like, are they, like, going up his sleeve and, like, all over the room and shit? Or
it's
like...
honestly a lot easier than that. Like, if I were to take, like, if this was a deck of cards, and obviously there's more cards down here, if I wanted these, and I'm talking to you, and I'm, like, engaging you, what would the idea is that wherever my eyes go is where you're gonna go. That's where your attention is, right? So we're talking right now, you're not looking at my hands. Mm-hmm. So if I'm doing something over here, you might not notice it unless I'm like, but if I'm sitting here and I'm talking to you casually, like doing this, you're not going to think about my hands.
Yeah.
So when I go like this, it goes down.
Okay.
So then it goes straight to the pocket. But people get so good at it that cameras can't even pick it up because they know their angles.
Damn, dude. Yeah. So it really sounds like a very studied practice where you just have to spend hours a day. Like his fingers probably move at a speed that the eye can't see then.
Yeah, and it's just the proficiency. Like I know a trick that I wanted to learn. This guy, I think it took him like 7 years to get down. 7 years? It's a coin trick. It's a vanishing coin, and it took him 7 years of him practicing to the point where he thought he was good enough to sell it. And all the trick is basically he has the coin, and I don't remember exactly how it works, but you basically, like, if you're going like this, you flick it and it'll slide down your hand. But he does it so smooth that it'll have the coin and it's just gone. It's just not there anymore.
And it rolls down.
Yeah.
You gotta balance it and shit.
Yeah, there's like crazy, but it's like, that comes with practice, and it's not only that, you have to know your angles. Because I can show you something and you can't see it from a certain angle.
And there's people that can roll a dice and always roll a 6 every single time, right?
I feel like I don't know too much about that, but I definitely feel like most likely, I know there's fixed die, so when you throw it, it's always going to roll in the same number. But judging what people can do, most likely.
Damn, dude, that's crazy.
It's intense.
One of my last magic questions for you. I remember this one time we were at the B Word's house, and you were like, it was like late. It was some late night.
I think
shit.
I know what you're gonna talk about.
And you were like, one day, Laser, I'm gonna show you a trick, and we're gonna go to like any store you choose, and you're gonna buy a deck of cards off the wall, and then something about like you're gonna know the card that I pull or something. Like I forgot what it was, but you were like, say you shuffled a deck of cards, showed me the card, say it's a king of clubs or whatever, and then we drive to a store, open up a brand new pack, and then the first card that I pull, it's like a king of clubs or some shit like that. Like do you remember what I'm talking about?
I think so. And basically, back to the principles of like certain things have to happen. If you think about it, if we go to the store and we buy a deck of cards, it's basically impossible for the card to be where I need it. There is no possible way one card's going to be flipped upside down, all this stuff. So that basically says the only way this is possible is if I did this myself and then put the deck there. And then forced you in some way to pick that deck without you realizing it. So that's how that trick would have went down.
Would you have picked the store, or would I have picked the store?
Most likely.
Me?
No, me. Okay. I would make you think that, but then you wouldn't have actually
Really?
Yeah.
Do you know how to do that?
For the most part. Like, I could have done it then. I can't do it now.
Okay. So you would have like opened the deck prior.
Yeah. I'd have to get the deck. There's a way to unseal it and then reseal it without you knowing.
Damn.
Yeah.
Okay, so you would have done this beforehand.
Yeah, long before. I would have planned it like in a month in advance. Like, I would have had to like plan, like, dude, I love this store. This is like my favorite liquor store. Like, you got to try this liquor store sometime. Like, I go there all the time. I get the best stuff. And just do that for like a month until the point where it's like late at night. And I'm like, oh, dude, I'm freaking thirsty. Like, let's go to the store. You know, something like something crazy like that, where it's like a lot of tricks have really good tricks have a lot of preparation in them.
Or even like a year in advance.
Yeah.
Really?
Some people can go really crazy. But a lot of the times it's pretty simple. It's just a matter of how good you are at what you're doing. Like,
yeah.
Some people could walk in the room and suggest something to you and you'll think it in 5 seconds. Like, somebody could say, just be talking casually but want to plant a certain thing in your head, and then you'll think of it just by saying certain weird words or phrases.